My dog's medicine. Hey,
Hi.
we are live for our first snack and learn of the week. I hope everybody's doing
Woohoo!
great. It is Tuesday. I've just excited my puppy so much he's going to bark in a second. That's my fault. I am thrilled to have on here somebody who works in an industry I actually used to work tangentially to for a long time, Lindsay Sutherland. First of all, let me welcome you, and then I'm going to tell people a little bit about you. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so grateful to be here, Pam. I'm so honored. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's awesome to have you. I know you're going to give us some awesome tips, guys. I got a preview of what we're going to learn today, and you definitely want to stick around for this. So, whether you're watching this live or on replay, stick around. There's a couple of gems coming around marketing and around the way that I love the way that Lindsay talks about this. She talks about having an unplugged lifestyle. We're all, as entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, so plugged in all the time. She's going to be sharing some tips with us on how to unplug a little bit. So stick around. Hang on here. Let me now silence this thing, which I did not silence before I got on the call, which you should never do on a live stream. So, who is Lindsay? For the last 20 years, she's been making a living in the automotive industry, and she's specialized in business development, sales, and marketing. So, she's gotten a real good look at an entire business and how it operates and how things work together inside that business. After chasing her dream to live in the country, she left the corporate job, sounds familiar, to literally, okay, literally, guys, live in a log cabin in the woods of a remote town in Idaho. So, as she continues to follow her dream of living a meaningful life, she started her consulting business to help other female entrepreneurs leverage the content they have, all that marketing content, all that brilliance that you're putting out there, so that they too can live an unplugged lifestyle. Maybe in the country of Idaho, maybe not, but that leads them to living the relaxing and memorable life that I think we all crave. So I am so excited to have you here because what you talk about is storytelling. What we want to talk about today is storytelling. So just give us a little background or story about why this is so important for us.
Well, so you and I were talking earlier. I mentioned that I went and had breakfast this morning at a Cracker Barrel here in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I'm staying actually in a hotel with my husband. He's doing a conference, and here I am hanging out with you guys.
Awesome.
And so we went to Cracker Barrel this morning, and I don't know if your friends will be able to see that, but this is I took a photo. I don't know. Let's see. It's kind of
You
hard
can
to
see that
tell.
there's some small type under the big type.
Yep. So it says Burt's Bees, the history of Burt's Bees. Now, why did I take a picture of this? Because I looked at this and my marketing brain said, oh my goodness, here's a guy selling chapstick of all
Chapstick.
things.
Talk about a
And they
commodity.
have, yeah, and they have a 3 foot by 2 foot billboard talking about the story behind Burt's Bees. If that isn't evidence enough that your story makes a difference, then I really don't know what is. But that
I'm
is
curious.
truly
Does he even mention the word chapstick in the story anywhere?
no, it says number one natural personal care brand. Um, let's see. He started out selling honey in Maine.
I didn't know
I mean,
that.
it's an interesting little, it's only a paragraph, but it tells more about, it does talk about personal care company with more than 150 products for almost every part of your lips, hair, and skin.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the last sentence. The
I
whole
love it.
other paragraph is about Bert.
This is
And
what's so important. I love it. And I'm thinking
yeah,
about it in the context of my own business, how important this is.
and so many people, I don't know if it's that, it's a lot of things. Maybe we're afraid to put ourselves out there. We don't know how to articulate our story in a way that is moving and meaningful, which is what we're going to talk about today.
Yay.
But it could just be simply that they're like, well, I sell leggings, so what does it matter? Maybe they're, doing a network marketing company, and their personal story doesn't matter. But I'm going to tell you what, especially in a network marketing company, and you're competing with how many other people in that same space. What is going to make you different? What
Mm-hmm.
will make people feel compelled to purchase from you specifically
Mm-hmm.
is your story. And and to do that in a way that makes people want to recommend you,
Mhm.
This is the power of marketing, is literally getting people to think of you because there's something memorable. Now, being in the car business, I have a lot of good stories about,
I
I
bet.
could think Big Tony, just ask for Big Tony, things like that, where these people, they almost portrayed a character, and
Oh,
one guy would wear always the Hawaiian shirts, just ask for Big Tony in the Hawaiian shirt. You
yep,
can't forget that, right? These
yep.
memorable moments that we can all create. And that is what our story does, is it epitomizes us and makes us a human to everybody who's watching us, so we become memorable.
And it's interesting, I think we say those words a lot, but don't really connect with them, and I'll tell you why. You've made me think of so many things, but the first one was, we have a great commercial here in the Philadelphia area, and the guy basically ends with, "I've always been your dealer, you just didn't know it yet." And after he tells you all these wonderful things about why he's family, how you work with him, how, how he came up in the Philly area, he's a Philly guy, blah, blah. "I've always been your car dealer, you just didn't know it yet."
Yeah.
And I think, so hot seat me here if you want to, but I'm like, "This is accounting, it's bookkeeping, how interesting is it?" But the bottom line is every time I'm with a client, I have a great story, I'm making them laugh, we're having fun. There is story there in this stuff, and even though it stares us in the face, I think we think we're an exception. Like I was
Well, and I think you just think it's not, I don't even know if it's that, but you think it's just not something people are paying attention to. I
Yeah,
think we
what's interesting?
underestimate
Yeah,
the importance of us. You know,
I
I
like
mean,
that.
let's be honest, we can find how, and I'm just thinking from my experience in a W-2 world, people are going about finding an accountant who um, is cheapest, right? Who can get through it for them with the least amount of expense. But once they get into the business corporate world, now it becomes like, I want an accountant who can understand real estate, or there's different things. But if you're not
Understand
telling
me,
that
the owner.
story,
Yeah,
right, or that you understand me, right, like that you
right.
can, maybe you have a gift for hearing my needs and making sure that you're looking out for my shortcomings, right? Because we
Mhm.
all have shortcomings, and an accountant should fill in the gaps if we, like,
Yep,
money's not my strong suit, right? So that's the kind of thing, like managing it rather. So
yep,
that's the kind of thing that, like, if you could tell your story, tell your gifts, and let them shine in a diplomatic way. Obviously, we're not looking to be boastful, but
yep.
there's no reason why we shouldn't lean into that a little bit and really help our audience understand us so they choose us.
Love it. Okay, tell me how. I'm ready. How do
Okay,
I do it?
so I've got five little tips for you today.
Awesome. All right, I'm gonna
And
I'm
this,
gonna put them in the comments as we go here so that
okay,
they're preserved for a lifetime here.
and this is a way for you to, if you, well, let's think a little bit more broader first, then I'm going to niche it down into making it one post. Okay, so to start, think about all of the things that make you unique. What makes you different than your competition, and just have that list ready. And it doesn't even have to be anything in relation to your competition.
I
It could just be a
traveled
simple
when I was
fact.
a kid. I traveled
You're
a lot
trying.
overseas when I was a kid.
Yeah. And
Okay.
maybe maybe I'm making things up totally, but maybe you struggled in school, and then now you're an accountant, and like you have some
Mhm.
transformation story that helped you to find your passion, and what lit you up and made you decide to go down this road, right?
Love that.
So tell me, why don't we just use you as an example?
Ooh, I love a hot seat. I love a good hot seat. So, for me, I actually knew I was gonna be an accountant from the time I was young, but for all sorts of reasons, and I aced everything in high school, top of the class in high school, 2nd in my class because of Carolyn Robinson. Calculus and Carolyn Robinson, so that was the problem there. That's my dog's alarm. So, but then I went to college. I was young. I was 17 when I went into college, and I totally bombed my first year. 2 Ds, 2 Cs, and a B. And my mom pulled the plug, and I went to work at 17. And then luckily, the company I went to, this was the old days, paid for my college career. So there's a
Nice.
little chunk of story.
Yep. Okay. So let's pick out Carolyn. Let's use that as an example. And we're going to
Caroline.
use Caroline. We're going to
Yep.
use that story to demonstrate to A, captivate your audience, and B, demonstrate how you how you kind of use that, and then where your story took from there into where you are today. Okay. So give me an example of a time when maybe you were sitting in class and Carolyn was there and you knew, like the moment hit you that you knew you were going to be second, you're going to graduate second.
I love it.
Let's talk about this. This is step number one. We
I
isolate a
love it.
moment. Okay.
Got
So
it.
tell me about that time.
So I knew as we went from junior to senior year that I was one math class behind her and that I hated calculus. So I knew I was going to be taking pre-calculus. She was going to be taking calculus. And I knew in my mind I was going to get a B plus instead of an A. And I knew she was going to ace calculus. So that hit me like at my end of year. Now we were good friends too, which was awesome because we knew it. We knew we were the one too.
Yeah.
And I just knew the minute she was doing calculus and I was doing pre-calc, it was all over.
Okay. So you might start with something like this. So there I sat, looking at my schedule as I was moving into senior year, staring at the word calculus, knowing full well that I was not going to get an A in this class. And to top it off, my friend Carolyn, who was
brilliant,
neck and neck with me to be the number one in our graduating class as our little friendly competition, there she was going into the class, and I knew without a doubt she was going to win, or she would get an A, right? And so we would narrow that down. Obviously, it was kind of wordy, but we would turn that into a bit of a story where you're capturing that little moment, right? You're getting your reader to go, oh, this is so interesting, and they're into that event, that experience.
I love that.
And
isolate a moment.
Yes. Okay.
Got it.
Now, the next step is going to be use adjectives. This is where I think people struggle a lot. They tell what and not how, and the feeling of it, right? They're just like, I was going into calculus. I knew my friend Carolyn was going to, you know what I mean? You want to capture the moment with the feeling words, right? So and after you get them into the line, you get the hook, you get to kind of lay out the plot a little bit. Then you bring in this thing. And I was gunning for first of my top of my class. And the fire in my belly, knowing, just hit me like, and then Phil put in an adjective, like, I don't know, it just, maybe it was more of a sinking in your tummy, right? It was just this sinking in my tummy, knowing that I was not going to make it. And I was so discouraged. I was happy for my friend and so discouraged at the same time, right? So you have this, you're using this moment to illustrate. That's really the key word. Yep. Illustrate the moment with adjectives. That's step 2. And you're leading up to something here. So what are we going to lead up to? We're leading up to the moment that you finally graduate number 2 and you think that's it. But then there's more. Thinking I graduated top of my class, and then to turn around and go to college and completely fail. Who would have thought? Now you're still talking, you got to bring it into the adjectives again, right? Like, what was it like? The defeat, the feeling of angst, right? Yep. Of just that. Here you are, you're a very determined woman. You're full of grit and determination. Yes. And to know that I was bombing, how could that be? Right? Ask the question, how could that be?
How could it be that I'm not getting up at 8 o'clock for my first class?
Yeah.
Might that be the problem, Pam?
And then you, in secret, shh, I won't be ever telling you what really happened in college. No, just kidding.
Exactly. And what's really embarrassing is one of those classes was actually like geography or geology or something.
Oh, something, yeah.
It was more, but yeah, so okay, that makes sense.
Yep. And so then you get to your climax. Now, this is where the peak of this happens. And so this all led to this important moment when my mom pulled me out of college. And here I was, after knowing since the age of 6 that I was going to be an accountant. I thought, how in the world am I ever going to achieve my dream? Right? So here's the plot twist, right? It's the think of about a story. There always comes a challenge to the main character. And here's your challenge. Your mom took you out of school. Now you're not sure what you're going to do. She's forcing you to get a job.
Yep.
And then you're going to lead into your transformation, right? This is where your whole thing shifts. Yep. This is where it kind of peaks over to the next step. And then the next step is, and so then where did you go to work?
DuPont. So I went to a corporate job. And I went to work in a mailroom. And what I did
my gosh,
in that door was I took that mailroom job and I freaking perfected it. So the last person had done that job took her 4 and 5 hours every day. I did it in 2. I was playing games in the mailroom to see how far I could throw mail to get it in the slots. I moved the tape back. I mean, I learned so much from that job about joy in the moment and making the best of every job, and also learned always do a little better than your best, because
See?
you're always setting an example or setting yourself up for the next thing.
And that there is could be a whole other post with a whole other story. Like
Oh my
all
gosh.
of these little things can be, you could literally between this last 10
I
minutes,
can't
I can
believe you
think of
pulled out
12.
all of this from one tiny sentence. That's amazing.
I think I could probably come up with at least 12 really good story posts from just this small conversation.
Wow.
And that is, and one a month, right? You've got one a month now that you can just dabble your story out there to the world a little bit at a time.
I
But
love that.
to wrap up our little story.
So that was the 2
So
use adjectives. But so the next one was
yes.
3.
So
Okay.
we got to the climax, number
Oh, okay,
3.
got it.
That's when your plot twist happens where your mom pulls you out
Yep.
of school, right?
Yep.
And now you're having your transformation. That's number 4. Your
Got it.
transformation is, so now I'm sitting in this, whatever adjective you would use to describe the job of mailroom manager,
It wasn't.
however it works.
I was just I was as
You're just
low
going
on the
along.
totem pole as you could get into like if we had grade levels of A, B, and C. I was like sub A. I mean, it
So the
was
most entry level position available in the DuPont Corporation
all the way over to
was
entry
me.
and fall off that end. That was me.
Right?
But I tell
And
you
there I
what,
sat.
I ruled that mailroom, and I had a
Yes.
blast. I had a
Yeah.
blast.
Well,
Um,
your point of this story though is that somehow this motivated you because you weren't going to be a mailroom lady for the rest of your life, right? And
yep.
so even though you had a blast, and you might even say, even though I had a blast in the 2 extra hours I crafted for myself, I knew in my heart of hearts that I couldn't be a mail person for the rest of my life. So
Mhm.
I thankfully, the blessing, the silver lining though, was that I was able to get an education because of the company I was with. And after failing the first time, I was bound and determined not to do that
Oh
again.
my God, totally came
So,
back.
right?
Yeah.
So now this is your story. Look, if you're a person who is like thinking of getting an accountant, here's an accountant who was so determined to be an accountant that you went to college twice, right? You like think about all the things you did in your life just to get to this moment to be an accountant for
I
who?
love
Me,
that.
right? And so you finish it. Now this is, so number 4 was the transformation. The
Yep.
transformation was your job prompted you and gave you what you needed to get into your next career
Goal
move.
setting.
Then
Yep.
the number 5 is where you tie it back into your reader. You suddenly bring them into your picture, right? So they're reading it thinking it's all about you until the very end. When you say something like, and friends, this is why you, let's think about that for a second. And now you know why I am so passionate about what I do. This has been a calling of mine since I was so little. And now to go through all of this ups and downs, to be here to serve you, because this is my pride and joy. This is the business that I've longed for, and I can't wait to meet you. Click here if you need your call to action. Click here to schedule your consultation, right? So that is essentially how a post
I'll tell you
would
what that
go.
is. That's a $2,000 consult you just gave me right there. And folks, here's what I will tell you about this. That is amazing. Thank you. I think what we've shared is brilliant because everybody can go through. What I want you guys to notice is I didn't go try to find a story there. I just said 5 sentences. And what Lindsay did was pick out one of those sentences and just created an entire month of postings about a piece of the story. That is brilliant. I mean, I'm glad we're recording this.
Mhm.
I think, one of the things when my team goes back to this, they're going to index it and identify these 1 through 5 because this is something any of us can do. And one of the things you started with, and a little bit of a tip for that, because I think we often get stuck at the brainstorming step and we think, okay, and this is a trick somebody told me. Tell me what you think about this. Is when you're brainstorming about things about your life, they said, go to where you see sort of, sorry, Mage, somebody's coming home, where you see
Oh,
Mage, like how you clump your life together. We all kind of clump it into like periods of time, I guess. So when I did that, in each one, there is a story or there's some things. Just write them down on an index card, just one little point. You know, number 2 in my class goes on an index card. Next one is failed college, goes on an index card. Next one was mailroom, goes on an index card. And when you think you're done with all the ideas, don't stop brainstorming. Make yourself stay there for 10 minutes. Because those ideas,
yeah.
what I found is after that block, it all comes pouring out.
Sometimes I go back over the ideas, just like when you were talking. I go back over the idea and then realize there is another angle within the angle, right? Like there's another layer to that. For example, your mailroom job, you could pull that out and make that a whole thing about how to enjoy your life and how hiring an accountant can help you do that. Oh, there's no audio. Oh, there we go.
Away from the barking dogs. Hang on. Yeah, I love that. The thing is, as you tell the story, more stories come out of it.
Right.
Which anybody can do. And I think the thing, I don't know, something about, there's a light bulb going on with this with now. And I've heard so many people say what you're saying. Tell the story. It's about the human. It's not about what you do. It's about your story that attracts people. For some reason, it's really resonating with me today. Like the chapstick thing jumped out, that you're not selling chapstick, you're selling the story.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that you picked out one sentence and actually made an entire story out of it. I know that I could have told you any chunk of a story and you would have done the same thing.
Yeah. That's what I do in my mapping sessions, right? We were going to talk about that, but that's
Yeah,
essentially, I literally just listen to people talk. I ask questions and then I turn it into content ideas. I
love it.
The secret to being a good writer though is to capture your audience in the moment. And I think the biggest thing that keeps people from doing it is that they don't think their story is significant. But you're creating a significance. That's essentially what you're doing. See, in your head, yeah, none of that was really significant. It was more like a timeline of events, right, that you experienced. Yep. But what we did is we brought your reader into a now, and we detailed it and made pictures like a painting. Yep. But then what makes it powerful is when we tie it back into the reader and to your why, and to your business, to whatever it is you're doing. It could be anything. I could pretty much think of a way, because here's the real facts of the matter. Every single one of us is where we are today because of the things that have happened to us in our lifetime.
Yep.
So it's just a matter of connecting the dots, right? And picking out a moment that can demonstrate that, or ask yourself this question. How can I think of the moments and then say, now that I have these moments, how can I tie them to XYZ, whatever it is your purpose is that you're sharing for, right?
I love it.
And so, yeah, that's the best way you could go either way on that.
And the thing that I'm wondering, hang on just a second here. I'm typing this out as one big comment, because the interesting thing about this to me is anything you pick would have this same transition. What is it that's unique? Use adjectives. There's always a climax to the story. There's always some sort of transformation, and there's always a way to relate it to your audience. And I think the thing that people should be aware of, take the time, do this exercise, guys. Make it a project this week to sit down and think about what your individual unique things are. What's a story? And we all have them. There are things about you that nobody else has ever experienced. Capture what some of those are and play around with this exercise. And the really cool thing, folks, I will tell you, that's even more important, is that Lindsay is offering a massive discount on her messaging or mapping session that she talked about. So really, I guess it looks like this kind of exercise. So I basically just got free counseling, for which I'm amazingly grateful. But if you guys are interested in a mapping session, just message Lindsay on Facebook or IG. When I turn these off, you'll actually see her IG handle here. And she will talk to you about setting up a very heavily discounted mapping session. And I know if you've watched this video from start to finish, you now understand the value of going through this process, because I can't, I'm like stunned. And I think you will be too, at how you can take one thing and make a big story out of it. I think that would just be, I mean, awesome. I really encourage you to take Lindsay up on this. Thank you, first of all, for making this offer to the group.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And second of all, guys, drop questions in here if you have them for Lindsay, whether you're watching this live or whether you're watching it on replay. I will tag Lindsay and get you answers. This has just been amazing. What a great way to wrap up a Tuesday.
Yeah. I'm going to leave you guys with one last little tidbit.
Awesome.
And the second piece of the pie is don't be afraid to share your story more than once in many places and repeatedly or different ways. I think often we think, oh, I already said that. But, I'll give you an example of a client of mine. She and I were I said to her, she's a financial planner, actually.
Oh, cool.
And she comes across as being very wealthy, and she's very wealthy. She's got a great lifestyle. And as she and I were talking, I said, well, what is your story? I said, because, it's hard. Some people might think that because you're doing well, that you've always done well. She said, no, I came from a very poor family. So we started going through her story, and I mean, her story is amazing. Wow. And she said, I've shared it, but you're just making me realize that I haven't shared it enough. If you didn't know that, because I've been following her, she said, then I haven't shared it enough. So you never know when, who's watching. Yep. And when do they pick up? It could go on your website. It could go in social media. You write blogs. You could be on, you could put it in, even in your magazine articles, or however you disseminate information. You can tie in pieces of your story in all of those places. And that's when you really brand yourself.
So the key is to write it in those chunks, and then you can use it everywhere. Because one of the things I find about my story that I don't think is unique about me, but every single stage of my life, or every single thing that I went through, whether it was good or bad, has informed what came next and made me better at whatever came next. And so there's always a lesson I got out of every story. And I just never thought that it would be interesting to tell, but you've just convinced me that I'm wrong. So I love it.
Very interesting.
Thank you so much for doing this.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
That is great. Well,
who knew you were going to be in the hot seat today?
Who knew? But hey, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I'm so grateful. I'll do a return finance hot seat for you, since you had mentioned you don't like numbers, but the numbers aren't the important thing. It's the story in the numbers that's the important thing. So
okay, well, see, we're both storytellers.
So I'm so grateful you jumped on here, folks. Lindsay's in the group. Feel free to pop questions to her, DM her. You can see her Instagram thing here. But I'll tell you what, if you watch this, if you watch it only once, go back and watch it again. Think of your own story, hot seat yourself here, and go through the exercise. This would make a great, a really good workbook, basically. And you can make it on your own, because she's laid the steps out for us for free right here, you guys. And I am so incredibly grateful. So thanks again for showing up. Everybody have a great rest of this week, and we will see you on another Snack and Learn soon.
Bye.
Thanks.